Hi, everyone, and a very special welcome to the first ever episode of our new podcast, Cross Examination. My name is William, and alongside our parish priest, Father Jacques, we've decided to jump into the world of podcasting, where we're hoping to reach our congregation, old friends, alumni, and really anyone kind enough to lend us their ears. Our goal is simple: to talk about life and faith with a bit of humor, a lot of humility, and as candidly as we can. Speaking of honesty, huge props to Father Jacques for stepping up to this microphone on a weekly basis to share his wisdom with us, no matter how difficult the topic. Speaking of topics, we're launching this on November 1st, which is All Saints' Day, so what better subject to start with than sainthood? In this episode, we'll explore what it means to be a saint, or a saint with a capital S, and how they still impact our lives. After that, we will be diving into a weekly series on the 7 sacraments. Finally, and more importantly, the whole thing is only a success if you get involved. So we kindly, humbly ask you, if you like it, to subscribe, share the podcast, talk about it, but more importantly, talk about it with us, engage with us on Instagram, Facebook, mail, after Mass on Sunday. Let us know what you think, the good and the bad. Fire away with questions, suggest new topics. We want to hear from you. A massive thank you for giving us your precious time. We both truly hope you enjoy this. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, welcome back to Cross Examination, and a blessed All Saints' Day to all our listeners from here in The Hague and to everywhere in the world. On this special day, the Church celebrates not just the famous saints we see in the stained glass windows, but the countless unnamed holy men and women, roughly about 10,000 according to the last estimates. But what exactly is a saint? Are they a spiritual VIP club or perfect people? Or is there something more accessible and profound going on? That's what we'll be exploring today with Father Jacques, the meaning of sainthood, the process of canonization. We'll also delve into the belief of intercession. What is it? What do we get from these distant role models? Are they active friends? Today, we're exploring the meaning of sainthood and the process of canonization. We'll also delve into the powerful Catholic belief in intercession, the idea that saints aren't just distant role models, but active friends in heaven we can turn to for prayers. And whether it's asking Saint Anthony to help find us our lost keys or seeking Saint Therese guidance in small daily challenges, we'll discuss how this great cloud of witnesses can be a real part of our everyday lives. And to guide us, we're so glad to have Father Jacques with us again.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to our day, All Saints, because we are sinners, yes, but we're also saints. Isn't that wonderful? That's so Catholic.
Small s or capital S? And there lies maybe my first question to begin. What is the difference? Because there is a saint with a small s and a saint with a capital S.
Well, the canonized saints probably would be the saints with the big S. And all these beautiful men and women in heaven, and also who live among us, who are not officially canonized, but loved by many and serve as an inspiration for many, would be the saints with a small s.
And those are my grandparents, distant cousins, everyone.
All the faithful who live their baptismal promises in such a way that God becomes visible through them.
That's a mouthful. So it immediately leads me to the next question, which is, what is All Souls then about? So what, because All Souls will be on 2nd of November. So how would you differ the two? What is the difference?
Well, every living and dead saint or sinner has a soul. So you can't separate the two feasts. So, of course, All Souls, remember.
You can't or you can't separate?
You cannot.
But they are separated.
Well, they are sort of two in one. Is 1st and the 2nd of November, they are a set. So they belong together.
Mm-hmm.
All Hallows Eve, Halloween, we remember the dead, but actually it means the evening of All Saints, All Hallows. So these things, they have a very strong connection. All Souls is about the people who have passed on to the next life and that we remember because they are still in our hearts. They are still with us as well. So we pray for our dearly beloved who are dead because we are still connected in heaven and on earth. Our souls are still one. So we pray for those in the past. It was, for the souls who are not in heaven yet. Let us pray that they may reach it.
Okay.
And those who are in heaven, let's thank them for the fact that they inspired us to get there too.
And so the ones that aren't in heaven yet, are we talking purgatory?
Yes. Pope Francis was a little bit, the whole purgatory idea. He said, well, let's leave it up to God to decide who is where, and I don't really know who is where. God is good, God is love. So the stages of his love are very difficult to define. That's for a very long time. People thought, if you're not going to hell, you need to be up for a while in order to get to heaven. But of course, all our notions about where we are in the afterlife is speculation. Let's leave it up to God. God is love and we'll be fine. And therefore, All Souls is such a beautiful idea of when you're dead, you're not gone. You still are part of us. And you're part of God who is bigger than life. And therefore, we place our moment in a bigger perspective.
Fair enough. Before we dive into the how and exactly how does one become a saint, why is sainthood a concept that exists to begin with?
First of all, life is sacred. So we are created in the image and likeness of God.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are the continuation of his creation and God saw that it was good, that goodness needs to be elevated, celebrated, aspired to, motivated. So the sanctity of life creates also the sanctity of its creatures. So when people rise above the ordinary, when they are become extraordinary because of their witness to that sanctity in life, they are recognized as such people who have shown their witness to God's goodness in such a way that we want to remember them. We don't want to forget. In fact, now the bells of the church are ringing.
How timely indeed.
How timely. But it is a call to sanctity. 12 o'clock. The day moves from the morning to the afternoon. Half of the day is over. And it reminds people through the Angelus, use your title, make this a day that you can be proud of. You still have half the day left to bring out the fact that life is meant to be good. Life is sacred. So use your precious time.
So, to paraphrase you maybe a bit too succinctly, so it's about celebration or celebrating extraordinary individuals, but in so doing also inspiring an entire new generation and other people to do better, to do more good, in the sense that, as far as I understand, all the saints are humans and therefore flawed, but that they manage to ascend above their imperfection, I guess, and achieve that status.
Yes, because only God is perfect, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect people are extremely annoying, so you don't have to be a perfect person to become a saint. Some saints are really weird people.
We'll get to that. We have a bit of a diagram.
Yes, it's when the official church recognizes, canonizes saints is one thing, but I think the whole idea of calling people a saint is very Catholic. You see people touching upon the sacred through who they are, what they say, what they do. They embody, they become, the word has become flesh. They become an incarnation of Christian values, of good living, of good human beings. And so I call many people a saint in my life.
Well, a good example. So what was the last time you called anybody a saint?
Oh, that was very recent. There was a pastoral worker in our parish called Sally, and she visited a few weeks ago.
Shout out to Sally if you're listening.
Yes, hi Sally. Yes, she moved from The Hague back to England. She painted the icons in our church, and she was such a a humble and compassionate voice in our parish that I could never be, simply because I was much younger and I had much less experience of life. And she was a woman. She also brought things into the equation that I would never think of. She was a saint, and we have many of our volunteers who are saints in our parish because they just live what we are meant to be: good, imperfect, but good people. So when we talk about all saints, that's the beauty of it. It excludes nobody. We all have a call to sainthood. And yes, some are officially canonized, great, but imagine if all of us would be canonized, it would be impossible. But it's wonderful to have somebody close to you. You say, like a photo of somebody who's dear to you, gone, dead, or alive. You keep it on your screensaver on your phone or in your purse or whatever. And we have saints like that who can keep close to us and say, wow, that's the person that I can identify with, or who speaks on my behalf, or that I would like to be close to. Or
So that brings me to, we're going to dive into the process itself of canonization, but maybe giving your segue here is why the middleman? Why this concept or this notion that we can go to saints for very specific things? Because we do have access through prayer to God directly, through Jesus Christ himself. So why the middleman?
Yeah, that's because we are human beings, and in the church 2000 years, in a very local way, we didn't know about the whole universal church and the whole theology and everything. If you have a local saint in Ireland who is called St. Patrick, you would like to go to an office that is close by than going immediately to Rome or immediately to the big boss. So people who brought us the message of Christ also became the messenger, and the message and the message became one. So you have fellow companions on the way to Christ. They don't take the place of Christ, but they walk side by side, or they inspire you to keep on walking to get there. And these are people who hold you by the hand to somehow show the human face of Christ in a very local or in a very specific way, because they've done that, or they embody this.
It's easier to relate to one of 10,000 than Jesus Christ himself, I guess, or God.
Of course, Christ is always the main goal, but the entire church is meant to be an instrument to bring people to Christ.
Right.
It isn't a goal in itself. It is our faith that saves us, not the church that saves us. But within the church, we have this communion of people that makes the great command, love your neighbor as yourself, and then your love of God becomes visible. You love God above all else. It's that neighborly connection that makes it so human, and that makes it so doable, achievable, and then tangible. And of course, all these people help you to reach Christ, but also with a sense of humor. If I lose my keys, I don't pray to Christ to find them. Then indeed, I go to St. Anthony, You don't bother the big boss for everything. And look at how these things, these relics, for example, in Cologne, the relics of the three kings, we don't know whether these relics really exist or not. I mean, 2,000 years for keeping relics is an awful long time. They came from Milan, and, they were brought to Cologne because they wanted to expand also the possibility for people to get closer to Christ through these relics. These relics have helped the church to become more local in its sacredness, more tangible. So they started building a cathedral. It took them 600 years to complete it, but it's a magnificent cathedral. So that these tangible things of saints help to spread the faith on a more local level as well. So the beautiful cathedrals that they've built all over the world with relics of saints.
The cynical corporate self in me wants to boil it down to a great marketing tool, which it sells it short. But I think it does achieve, this localization of, making it more accessible, I guess, to, a lot of people by recognizing in your own local, in your own country or whatever generation even, I think, for example, the latest saint that was canonized, it is generally inspiring a lot of young people today.
Yes, and think of the Shroud of Turin, or the blood in Bruges of Christ, or even splinters of the wood of the cross. If you look upon it purely from a rational way, they lose their mystique. But there are really tangible ways for people to get closer to Christ. And, we can do all the scientific research, if you like, but it doesn't, in the end, it doesn't matter. What has that beautiful story, St. Patrick in Ireland, the Shroud of Turin, or, there are so many of these examples. You even have footprints of Christ for the ascension on rock, can you imagine? It doesn't matter. These expressions of God's closeness in history have moved people's faith for many, many generations, and they have made them their own. And they have given them local identity, a local purpose, a local connection. And these things are all the wonderful ways in which the Holy Spirit works, with great creativity and initiative. And then why does it happen that for so many centuries these things continue to exist? That for me is the miracle, not the actual historical matter or the stuff, the bone or the blood or anything like that. The fact that for so long it meant something to people is the actual.
So, in terms of the meaning, the more profound meaning, what is the difference, I guess, between praying to a saint or worshiping a saint, if there is a difference?
Well, we shouldn't worship a saint. That's it. You pray with the saints. You pray always to Christ, but through the intercession of. So you don't, in the Hail Mary, you ask her to reach your son. And it's, we worship Christ, but in the communion of saints. So a lot of Protestant denominations, they cannot understand that. They say, the saints are idols. They lead away from the real presence of Christ. But we become.
That's why intercession, the concept of intercession is so critical, right?
Yeah, but we become what we receive. We become the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. So in the Catholic understanding of the Eucharist, it's not a reality that it renders present for us the presence of Christ in both the Word, the sacrament, in people. So our saints, are our co-brothers and sisters on the way to Christ. They don't the place, but they are our communion, they are our community, they are our,
Crystal, how did Saint Anthony, and the question is more general, how do the saints get their, I guess, patronages or causes assigned? Like, I'm sure Saint Anthony wasn't, while he was alive, gunning for the title of, saint of all lost object. So how does that, obviously their backstory lends to that, but is that part of the official canonization process to assign a topic or a certain cause to a saint?
Yeah, normally that absolutely. You have saints that become the patron of sailors or of youth or even of the internet. We have one Isidorius, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, you have Saint Lidwina in Schiedam, who is the patron saint of skaters.
He's just showing off your mallet.
But of course, these are popular things, that you cannot limit the use of a saint because of some, I would nearly say fun element or popular element. But I still remember I have the statue in my office, the statue of my mom, of Saint Anthony. She always prayed to him when something was lost. And if you didn't...
Figuratively or literally?
Oh, she always prayed to Saint Anthony. Oh, yeah, for her, that whole theological idea of, no, you pray to Christ and all that. No, of course not. She talked to Saint Anthony. She said, hey, listen, I lost my this or that. So if he didn't deliver in a few days, he would turn the statue around and he would be facing the wall. And that is widely practiced in a lot of homes. Brilliant.
So you're allowed to get upset with a saint?
Of course, he's a brother or sister, of course. Yes. Oh, I think we do it all the time. But how they get attributed these...
Like that sounds like the Saint Anthony of lost object. How did that even come into existence, Yes. Because I'm sure Saint Paul or Saint Anthony, like every day he spends his time looking for things for other people.
The other saints are laughing, thinking, well, thank God it's your job, not mine. So, to be quite honest, I don't know how he got that. But sure, ChatGPT tell you.
Maybe I'll put it in the description. But speaking of canonization, the process itself. So I understand there's multiple phases. It is a pretty extensive and thorough process, as far as I understand. Could you walk us through it?
No, I've never been part of it. But yes, it's quite a process. It takes quite a while as well to get to that stage. And some get it quite easily. If you think that we had 266 popes, but 83 are canonized already. So if you have a certain job, you have a high likelihood of becoming a saint.
Let's go to do. But still only 1 out of 4, well, 3. It's still,
yes. But there are, of course, there is a criteria that a saint has to have performed a certain miracle. So people turn to a saint for normally miracles of healing or whatever happened. So something extraordinary needed to have come about through the intercession of that saint or in the life of that saint.
And is there what type of miracle does it need to be? Does it need to be, something that touches or heals a person? What does the miracle need to be about or?
A lot of times it's indeed about healing but also, in the case of Padre Pio, it was the stigmata, the appearance of the wounds in his hands and his feet, the wounds of Christ. So healings can take on, or miracles can take on different forms. It's such a huge area, but it's mainly in the recognition that either people have had an appearance of the Virgin or something like that, and how truthful is that? Were there witnesses for that or not? So it can be multiple things.
That's where we start. There needs to be some type of miracle to start the process. And I'm sure that person then still have to live, lived a good life and pious and helpful, etc. But sorry, so okay, miracle is established. I'm assuming that the local parish then puts it through the command chain, to put it that way, where it goes up to the bishop, to the cardinal. And so is that how it works, or that?
Mostly, yes, that's how it works when there is a long-standing sort of reverence and devotion of people to that particular person. And then it's brought to the diocese. The diocese can forward it to the office in Rome that deals with the canonization of people. There will be all investigation, and of course, that procedure can take many years. As you said, there are certain stages as well. But for instance, with we recently had a Dutch saint who was in a concentration camp, and he offered his own life for others to save other people's lives. He also published during the war a lot of messages in the resistance to save people's lives, keep people inspired.
Is he the person that was in the concentration camps themselves that offered his place, or is this outside? Because I'm familiar with a book where there is, in many books, where there's a mention of this person. Maybe I'm conflating both.
He was a rector of the University of Nijmegen. Titus Brandsma, of course, yes.
So, first, you were talking about the Honorable Titus Brandsma, who was the last Dutch saint to be canonized.
Yes. It was a huge, that was a big thing for the Netherlands, but also for the University of Nijmegen. Him as a former rector and also as one of the people during the war, risked his lives many times. It was interesting because the cardinal here, Cardinal Eyck from Utrecht, suggested to remove the title Catholic from the Nijmegen University because he thought that the university had become too secular, which used to be a Jesuit university. But then all of a sudden, a former rector of the University of Nijmegen became a saint. So now you have the Titus Brandsma Institute from the University of Nijmegen that brings people together for social justice, for theology. And also the university retained the title Catholic. So,
do you remember? I mean, it's pretty clear, the actions that he undertook to justify and warrant his sanctity. Do you have a recollection what the miracle was in his particular case?
Well, first of all, he is the patron saint of journalists and educators and defenders of truth, which is
pretty big one.
pretty big one. So a Carmelite priest and scholar, and his opposition to the Nazi regime actually gained him so much reverence and anti-Semitism. So he urged Catholic newspapers to refuse Nazi propaganda. And because of that, he was arrested, imprisoned, and killed by the Gestapo. So he was in Dachau and endured brutal conditions. He helped other prisoners by, somehow his own presence and his own views. But he was killed by a lethal injection in 1942. The nurse who administered it later testified that his sanctity meant a lot. He forgave her, he prayed for her whilst she was doing that.
Thanks for that very kind of concrete example and recent example. What I was trying to ask you, in this particular case, maybe we're not aware, but what the miracle is, because I think that's one part that a lot of people, including myself, would not struggle with, but it seems that a lot of saints are more known for their actions, for their behaviors, what they did for others, rather than a miracle that happened to them, which I think is a great thing. But it seems that the miracle aspect of it, or the miracle requirement, seems to be sometimes dressed up a little bit, or is there always a genuine miracle in each of these 10,000 plus things?
Well, what is a genuine miracle?
Well, I guess that's at the heart of the question.
I don't know, to be quite honest, what the criteria of the office in Rome for canonization is. I do know that when Titus Bransma was beatified in 1985, there was no miracle attributed to him. So for the beatification. And later, for the canonization, it was important that the miracle was attributed to him. So there was another Carmelite priest in the United States, Father Driscoll, who suffered from stage 4 of skin cancer. And his fellow Carmelites started praying through the intercession of Titus Bransma. This Father Driscoll was healed, his cancer disappeared. Now, of course, doctors were unable to explain the recovery. No medical treatment could account for it. And they attribute that healing because to Titus Bransma's.
Posthumously, so after Titus Bransma passed away, then, okay.
Sure, yes.
Again, I'm not, at the risk of sounding judgy or critical of this, I understand that there's a requirement. It is a pretty big requirement, obviously, to perform a miracle. Yeah. But so they can be performed posthumously, which helps in this particular case with his from going from a beatification to a canonization.
Through the intercession of a saint, and if through the prayer of that saint a certain miracle comes about, that miracle is attributed to that saint.
Okay.
But in the end, of course, it's always God who heals. It's really intercession of that saint. So, I think these things are beautiful. If a certain saint helps you to heal, great. But it is in the end what Christ says. It's your faith that heals you, and it's your faith in God. And it is your saint helping you to get there.
And so in Vatican City, there's a canonization committee of some sort that renders a judgment. Is this a cabal of 12, 15 cardinals? How does this work?
I don't know how big the office for canonization is. I don't think it requires that many cardinals, but in the end, they give the report to the Pope, and then the Pope has to ratify it.
Okay, so the Pope has the final yes or no.
The final yes or no, yes.
I'm assuming it's quite rare they would overrule the committee.
Okay, question. And of course, some saints are also, imagine what is happening now at the moment, and it shows that the Holy Spirit also has a sense of humor, of course. The Nobel Prize was given to a lady from Venezuela, who was in the opposition against the dictatorship of Maduro. And in the very same week, two saints, the first saints in the history of Venezuela, will be canonized next Sunday. It's, I think, the 19th of October. Coincidence? Yes, isn't that amazing? Now, for me, that's a miracle already. And that is the beauty of leave it up to God. If we rationalize all these things, what is necessary now in the history of Venezuela for people to rediscover their values that unite them?
Yeah.
Then, from a very secular point of view, the Nobel Prize Committee says, it goes to Venezuela because the effect for that country will be amazing. The recognition of people suffering during all these years and also the election procedure of the current president remaining in power needed, the opposition needed validation.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a completely different score, two completely separate roads, two saints were suggested and happened to be recognized and canonized in practically the same week. Two saints who have done an awful lot to exactly be a voice for the people who were not heard in the shanty towns, the poor, the victims of a system.
So is it, I'm sure it's fair to ask the question here, is this purely coincidence, or does the Vatican, the Pope, in some way, and again, not that those people were invented, but is there a ploy here to exert some political influence as well on Venezuela? Because obviously, there's some serious issues in terms of Venezuelan democracy or lack thereof, and to give again a more wind in the sails of the revolutions that Ms. Machado is trying to achieve. So, do you understand my question?
Yes. It is. We are, of course, a church that is also very human. Cardinal Parolin was the papal nuncio in Venezuela for about 10 years, I think. He lived there. So he's the Secretary of State at the moment in the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he has great knowledge, inside knowledge about what's happening in Venezuela, and great passion for that country as well. So do these things influence or help? Who am I to say no? So yes, I think so. And even so, at the same time, you can never foretell its effect. But it's also a beautiful way in which you allow the Holy Spirit to do its work, by are people angry because you are doing good? If you canonize two saints because they deserved it, and for the history of the church in Venezuela, it's long overdue that they also have a saint. In the long term, what does this do for this country? I don't know.
No, and just to be clear, I don't want to be accused here of, being overly cynical about it, but obviously those two people who have been canonized now, obviously it's this huge merit. It's just that the timing, coincides with the Nobel Prize, coincides with the plight of the Venezuelan people. I think it's amazing. I think it's great. Yeah, it does create this momentum, I hope anyway, for Venezuelan people. But, we have to be a little bit realistic too, and it's called cross-examination. So I will ask, some stuff on questions.
Of course, the Vatican didn't know that the Nobel Peace Prize would also go to Venezuela. So that is completely, these routes are completely separate. But that they do something important for Venezuela that I think is planned. And also with this recent saint, this 16-year-old youth from Italy, we have to look up his name.
Yes, I am.
That he becomes a saint to inspire youth and to see also. I was in Bangkok recently, and I saw the cathedral in Bangkok. They had a photo of him, and the cathedral was full of youth who had a meeting around this new saint. And you see a saint in jeans, in sneakers.
Carlo Acutis.
Carlo Acutis, yes.
British-born Italian Catholic teacher. Sorry, go on.
And of course, he was sick. He bore a sickness with great patience. But the fact that these young or these new saints have an immediate impact on the lives of many people, that is something that we can now use through social media, through new ways of evangelization. And of course, it helps the Vatican also to, bring people together. And
absolutely. That's what the saints are for, is to inspire us, I guess. But, establish that more or less in the beginning. To make it a bit more personal, do you, again, there's a plethora of saints to choose from. Many Catholics, for example, your mother had a favorite patron saint or a favorite saint. Do you have one?
Well, I was kind of doubting between Saint Valentine and Saint Nicholas. Valentine, because obviously Valentine's Day is a lot of fun. And in this parish, we always celebrated the renewal of marriage vows, but also it's doing something extra to make love happen and celebrate it. But Saint Nicholas, I have been Saint Nicholas since my 16th.
You might have to explain to non-Dutch-based audience what it means to be Saint Nicholas.
Saint Nicholas in the Western European countries is Santa Claus. And the name, of course, Santa Claus comes from St. Nicholas. Now, St. Nicholas is known for giving presents to children, and his day is a big day for families to celebrate their appreciation for each other with a little poem, with a gift. So in Flanders, in some parts of Germany, Central Europe as well, celebrates St. Nicholas. And in the Netherlands, we make a big thing of St. Nicholas.
And just to be clear for everyone, we're not talking about Father Christmas, which is also Saint Nick.
Yes.
But here in the countries and the regions that Father Shack just described, it's Saint Nick, and it's usually on the 5th of December or 6th of December, depending on where you are. And so this is where I guess you come into, what do you mean with I played Father?
Right, St. Nicholas, yeah. So it's the 5th of December is St. Nicholas Eve, and that is when the gift giving is. But indeed, on when I was a child, you would place your list, your wish list, on a chair or in a clog, a wooden shoe, and then the next day, on the 6th, you would have to go to mass first because it was St. Nicholas Day. And that's not the case anymore, of course. But then after mass, you could open your gift. So, but anyway, we are talking about Saint Nicholas of Myra. He was born in Turkey in the year 270. He died in 343 in Myra. So he was the bishop of Myra. He also participated in the Council of Nicaea, the Council of the Nicene Creed. That is
25, I believe.
exactly. We celebrate now.
I believe in one Holy Apostolic Church.
Yes, exactly. So we celebrate the centenary, many centuries of the Nicene Creeds. But it was funny because St. Nicholas was quite a rough guy. Yeah? I mean, he didn't stand for the heresies that found their way into, well, before formulating the creed, into the theological discussions. So he punched one guy on the face during that council in order to stay true to the orthodoxy and to the articles of the creed.
I was going to say different times, but have things really changed that much?
Did they really happen? We also don't.
That's also true.
But
Folklore.
Anyway, St. Nicholas is the patron saint of Russia, of Greece, also of several cities. Amsterdam, for example, Aberdeen, Liverpool, also a city in Malta. And here, only in the Netherlands, 54 cities have a special link with St. Nicholas, either a parish or a school or an institution or a home. So he is extremely present here in the Netherlands. He is the patron saint of sailors, but also of children. He came from a wealthy family, and his story for the gift giving was known for brides who had no money. So he would throw coins through the open windows of these girls who were about to get married to help them a little bit to have a bit of a dowry. So anyway, you don't know whether all these stories are true, but absolutely has this still this image of a person who gives, also gives gifts.
And again, just to emphasize to our listeners who are non-native or not familiar with the culture, St. Nicholas or Sinterklaas, as they call him here, is pretty big. It's a huge happening in otherwise very secular Holland, right? So I used to live in Amsterdam on the Amstel. On the December 5th, it's a procession of boats on the Amstel because the officially comes in from Spain. That's this whole story behind. I'm going somewhere with this, is that it brings about such joy, and it's a great time for people. People love it all across Holland. But there is this juxtaposition, sorry, like a better word, between deeply secular Holland and then this adulation, pardon the pun, of a saint. How, and I know it's on a very unconscious level, but how do you look at that as a priest?
The Sinterklaas period takes about 3 weeks. So 3 weeks.
It's the whole build-up.
For the actual feast, he is welcomed on a steamboat, and hundreds of thousands of kids celebrate or even more, I would say, the entrance.
It's much bigger than Christmas. Let's put it there.
Yes, much bigger than Christmas. And it's a time, I said I've been St. Nicholas since my 16th. In the past, it was a time for correcting children a little bit. So if they behave badly, then Santa Claus would tell them to go and reward them for their good behavior. Now, nowadays, Santa Claus doesn't do that anymore, because in the past he had Black Peters. And they had a straw sort of, a bunch of twigs. And these twigs, they were used to, in the past, to beat children on the back.
I am going to say different times there.
Yeah, different bags. And he also had a bag in the youth bag.
Yeah.
And if a child was badly behaved, the threat was that he would be put in the bag. He or she, and would take it to Spain. Poor kids in Spain. So it gave a very nasty image of Spain, and also a very nasty image of Black Peters. And of course, Black Peters, they were, now that it was a big international.
I believe we're wading into this debate.
My God, they said no, Black Peters is very colonial. You cannot use that sort of caricature of colored people to punish children. It's all the wrong associations. And we say, yeah, he's not black because he was a person of color, but his color came from the fact that he entered through the chimney and the suit.
You understand?
You need to understand the entire story. But anyway, now we don't have Black Peters anymore.
The colored Peters.
We have, they still use the clothes of the servants of the St. Nicholas. I mean, in that 17th century or, even older.
But to my question of, is it hypocritical of Holland to celebrate St. Nick?
Yes. No, I don't think he's either, but we have grown in the Black Peter issue, so we don't need Black Pete's anymore. We have now white, yellow, green Pete's, and God knows what. We have rainbow Pete's. But we still use the sainthood of St. Nicholas as a good person. A lot of people have no idea what a bishop looks like anymore, of course. So when they see a bishop in a known cathedral, they say he looks like St. Nicholas, because St. Nicholas wears a mitre and he has a staff, and he is dressed as a bishop because he was a bishop. But he also has a big beard to disguise him, of course. So we dress him up as a bishop with a beard, yes. And thank God that hasn't changed yet. So I hope I'm not starting that movement, but the cross has not been removed from his mitre yet. So that's a good thing. So there has been no movement against removing the cross from the book with the names in which all the children are written, or the cross.
Do you see it evolve that way?
Not yet. Not yet. The TV, St. Nicholas, which also has changed over the years, but the new mitre, that is the image of the bishop, still has a cross on it. So, but the idea of having a saint, Saint Nicholas, we still call it like that. And I think it's an unconscious thing of saying, we need a saintly person to reward us for good behavior. And in a way, that's...
It's funny how traditions, despite, all efforts, endure. Well, endure, full stop,
Yes, there was a certain movement from the University of Utrecht to remove Christmas from their calendar. In France, the same movement. It was a few weeks ago, it was in Marseille, and it was big news then. And in France, they decided against it. They said, no way, it's Christmas. And Ramadan is Ramadan, Christmas is Christmas. We are not going to call it Happy Holidays, because Happy Holidays comes from holidays, and the holidays are there for a reason. It's the birth of Christ that we celebrate.
Whichever way you put it, you land at the same.
You land at the same. And the University of Utrecht wants to push it through. There is no agreement about it yet. But for Santa Claus, we don't call him Nicholas. It's not the feast of Nicholas. It's the feast of Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
And that awareness, somehow, when we are back on what is a saint and what is sacred to us, is the fact that, when life is good, it deserves a reward. And that is something, we express our own generosity in that act, when it makes us a little bit like a saint.
So it happens to be the vehicle.
Yes.
Symbolism.
When I was 16, I went with a district nurse to sick people in our village. We visited them in their homes. It was an organization, the Sunflower, the Zonneblue, this. And, every year since, I've been St. Nicholas for all kinds of things, student movements, Rotary clubs, refugees. And it always, it's funny because there is a lot of fun as well. And the truth is told in the rhymes and in the way that people celebrate and are rewarded or corrected. But it's always an emotional thing. When Sinterklaas enters, there is something, whoa, now we pay attention.
To your point, there is an element of reconciliation almost, or confession, in the sense that I remember as a kid, you had to write a letter, right, to Saint Nick. And I think that letter by nature was very self-reflective. So yeah, this topic fascinates me in how, Christian and Catholic values have endured through time, through secularization, whether it's our language, everybody swears in the name of, and so maybe that's maybe for another topic or another podcast. To start wrapping up, but in good nature and good fun. For everyone listening as well, not just for Father Jacques, we have a little bit of a quiz in terms of what saint am I? As I said, there's over 10,000 saints and counting. There's some really obscure and arcane saints out there. Prior to recording, I tested Father Jacques on one and immediately got it, which was rather annoying. So let's make it a bit tougher.
Oops.
And let's figure out if you, listener, or Father Jacques can figure out. So our next saint, let's get practical. I was a 4th century virgin and martyr under the Roman Emperor Julian the Apostate. After I was martyred, a church was built over my grave, and for centuries, the herbs that grew in the church garden were gathered by the faithful and used as a remedy for a very specific self-inflicted ailment. The self-inflicted is quite important. Who am I, and what malady am I the patron saint of?
I have no idea.
It has to do, I'll give you a clue, it has to do with the Eucharist. Or parts of the Eucharist. What do you drink at the Eucharist?
But yes, bread and wine, but
Self-inflicted wine hangover.
oh my God.
There is a saying,
On earth could I have missed us?
and she is called Saint Bibiana, patron saint against hangover and headaches. I don't think it's a coincidence that her name is Bibiana because I believe Latin bibere means drinking in Latin. So there must be some association there. But yeah, there you go. There's even a patron saint for her.
Oh, I love this because I'm going to need her.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, sometimes it helps to have something.
I'd order myself a little cross of or Saint Bibiana. Let's do one more. In our own backyard here in the Netherlands. I was a 14th century girl from Schiedam. Age 15, I had a terrible accident while ice skating, breaking a rib. The injury never healed and led to a lifetime of debilitating illness and mystical suffering, including bearing the stigmata. Here's a miracle. My sickbed became my ministry. Who am I? And given my story, what am I the patron saint of?
Yes, thank you. This is not so easy because when you take the train from The Hague to Rotterdam, you pass the Basilica of Saint Lidwina. So it must be Lidwina.
It is correct. Saint Lidwina of Schiedam was a patron saint of ice skaters and the chronically ill of ice skate. Is there any more Dutch patron saint, I wonder? Should I do one more?
We have time for one.
Sure. Last one. I was a 12th century Flemish nobleman who gave up all my wealth for a life of pilgrimage. Good start. During my travels, I was struck by terrible disease that left me with severe facial deformities. The townspeople were so frightened by my appearance that they built a small cell for me attached to the local church. That sounds absolutely dreadful. Where I lived in isolation for the rest of my life, sustained only by the Eucharist and barley water. Because of my story, I am the patron of unattractive people and, strangely, coffee house keepers. Who am I?
Wow. Because from all the beautiful Belgian saints that we have here.
I didn't say I was going to pick the best days. I just talking about arcane saints.
So I have no idea.
Saint Drogo, patron saint of unattractive people, those with hernias and coffee house keepers. Well, I guess he must be on the rise with the rise of hernia and back aches. Maybe he needs a bit more and a little bit more recognition.
Don't you love it? For anything under the sun, we have a saint. So
there must be an app for it as well.
We have, of course, but also our baptismal names Many Dutch boys have a girl's name in their baptism names, which is great. So we are not just defined by the name that we are called by, but we have a whole set of them to sort of guide us through life. So there are lots of Johnnies who are also called Mary. And somehow it shows a sense of humor and a sense of belonging to a much wider group.
And to re-emphasize the point that what the saints provide and why they're there as part of the confirmation class, I'm sure you're aware, it is a key part or a key activity in the confirmation is to pick a saint that inspires you. And so I like seeing the teenagers go out in the discovery to find, who inspires them. And to your point, there's so many stories that you're bound to find a saint that does inspire you. Mine is pretty straightforward. Saint Joseph, patron saint of fatherhood, amongst other things. But it's not just that, it's what's behind in the story. The fact that he barely appears in the Gospels. There's many things that I like about Saint Joseph. Any other parting thoughts on
Saint Joseph? I think even the historical Protestant churches after the Reformation, they come back to the idea of saints, how important it is to have these role models as well. Saints were removed from a lot of churches as distractions. And now more and more we realize how important it is to have fellow travelers on the way. You are not alone in your faith journey. And yes, it's not the officially canonized in Rome, so it's not only a Roman thing. It's a thing that belongs to Christianity. We are sinners, yes, but we always seem to concentrate on that aspect of life. But we're also saints. Let's start treating each other as such.
That's all we have for today, I think. Sincere thanks to Father Jacques, as usual, for helping us understand our relationship with the saints today. We've learned today that the saints aren't distant superheroes, but brothers and sisters. I think you put it in those words at the very beginning. Our family and our greatest cheerleaders too. So on this All Saints Day, we're reminded that we're all called to be saints, like Father Jacques just said, and treat others like saints, and that we have an entire heavenly family praying for us to get there. Leave us some questions if we missed out on anything, if we misspoke, if we were wrong about something, if you want to share a story about your own favorite saint, feel free to share it. We'll be happy to address it in some listener mail section maybe going forward. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us on Sundays on parish.nl. And yeah, thank you for listening and thank you for being part of the journey. Join us next week, as we continue to explore our faith. Father Jacques, thank you.
Thank you.